The Retroid Pocket 5 has been announced, but there are few reasons why I'm hesitant to buy it. Why? Let's begin. The Retroid Pocket 5 comes with 6GB of RAM, which is actually a downgrade from the 8GB on the RP4 Pro. Retroid claims you can add 4GB from internal storage. But in my experience, this isn't ideal for gaming. It is more useful for simple tasks like browsing, not for gaming performance. While the Snapdragon 865 has better driver compatibility, particularly for Switch emulation, it is important to note that with only 6GB of RAM, Switch emulation on the RP5 won't be great, especially for graphic-intensive games. For systems weaker than PlayStation 2, the Retroid Pocket 4 Pro is already more than capable. The real challenge comes from PlayStation 2, but again, from my test, the Dimensity 1100 in the RP4 Pro performs well enough for PlayStation 2 games. According to the info available, the RP5 runs on Android 10. They say it is because Android 10 is the last version supported by Snapdragon officially for this SoC. It is possible to have a higher Android version, but it takes time. If that's the case, why announce and release the device now? Not until they finish the build. That's my question. Yes, it may not affect the performance, but it feels weird to be buying a device in 2024 with Android 10. That said, most emulators on the Play Store only require Android 6 or higher, so you don't have to worry that much about emulator compatibility. They have mentioned that Android 13 support is coming in 2025, but no exact date has been given. The release window between RP4 Pro and the RP5 is about 9 months. Assuming we get it in January, that's already about half of the release cycle. I don't want to be evil here, but what if the sales are not good and they decide not to release Android 13? What can we do? Nothing, right? So if the Android version is important to you, don't be hasty to pull the trigger. Maybe it is better to wait for RP6 then. With all those downgrades, the RP5 has higher price. Yes, I know it has an OLED screen and use the Snapdragon 865, but that chip was released in 2019, while the Dimensity 1100 came out in 2021. My point is this: if the RP5 had been released at the same time as the RP4 Pro, the higher price would have made sense. But since the Snapdragon 865 is older, the price should be same by now with all those downgrades. Instead, the RP5 costs more, but that's just me. The RP5 does support Linux, so you can use Batocera. However, for me, this isn't a big selling point since I primarily use the device for emulation and Android is already sufficient for that. Plus, it is the Linux ARM version, which means you won't be able to use emulators like PCSX2. So Linux support isn't that important to me, but if it matters to you, that's great. Personally, I've never had any issues with Android for emulation, and battery life is really solid in Android. Some might mention Portmaster, but most of my favorite Portmaster games already have native Android version. Games like Stardew Valley, you can even play Hollow Knight on Android. But again, if you are into Linux, this might be one of the best handhelds in its price range. Those are all my concerns for the device. However, of course, there's a good thing about this device, and that is the OLED screen and higher resolution, which means your games will look better on this device. In conclusion, the RP5 doesn't feel like a true upgrade. It is more like an RP4 Pro Max minus RAM. I think the only reason why they don't give the name is because everyone is gonna be angry. So let's just slap RP5 name and pretend it is not a side grade. The true successor device here is the Retroid Pocket Mini. It is a substantial upgrade if you come from Retroid Pocket 2S or lower. But if you already have the RP4 Pro, I don't think it is good idea to buy RP5. I know the price is only $220, but in some countries, tax and shipping can push that closer to $300. No, I'm not kidding. At least that's the price in my country. And with that money, I can buy a Switch OLED. Also, there's a big competitor in that price range. It is the Razer Edge, which currently costs around $250. It comes with a better Snapdragon processor, the same 6GB of RAM, and even includes a controller that can be used with your smartphone. My recommendation, check the price first. If the price is close, I prefer to pick the Razer Edge. Or maybe as the RP5 comes out, the price of the RP4 Pro will drop, making it better purchase if you don't already own one. But honestly, if I still had my RP4 Pro, which I sold because of the potential trigger issues, and it is real hassle and expensive in my country to send it back to Retroid, I wouldn't be considering the RP5. What do you think? Let me know in the comments and feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. Thanks for watching.